What's up, everyone? It's your girl Shay here. Welcome to my channel if you're new, and welcome back to my channel if you've been here before. As you can see by the title of today's video, I'm actually going to be talking about an article that I had found on CBR.com where they basically talked about or list 10 different anime that they thought were not really appealing for children and would mostly just appeal to adults. Now, I can honestly just speak on the anime that was within this list that I myself have actually seen, which was probably about 6 or 7 of them. So I will, of course, link the entire article down below so you yourself can check it out and see what the entire article says, what they had to say about it, as well as all the anime that was actually listed. Now, the reasons on CBR that they gave as to why they felt like these shows would not appeal to children is because they lacked things like romance, they lacked action, and they had some complex themes that they thought that kids would not actually be able to understand. Now, among the shows that were on this list, the ones that I had seen were shows like Spice and Wolf, Psycho Pass, Death Note, Baccano, Death Parade, Love is Hard for Otaku, as well as Cowboy Bebop. Now, like I said, I can only really speak on these shows because the other shows that were listed, I had not seen before. So interestingly enough for me, a lot of the shows that I had seen on this list, I actually did not watch until I was an adult. So I was about in my 20s. Love is Hard for Otaku, I saw at the age of 30. And shows like Death Note as well as Baccano, I actually watched when I was probably about 18 or 19 years old. So for those shows, I was a late teen, but I still technically was an adult when you thought of like US standards as far as what they considered you to be an adult. Now, as far as whether or not I agree with whether or not these shows would appeal to children or not really appeal to children due to the material involved, first, let's look at what is considered a child. Now, within the article, they didn't actually dictate or say what they considered a child to be, like as far as a specific age range. So for me, I'm going to be basing it off of pretty much what I feel a child is. So I feel like a child is anyone between the ages of 4 and I'm going to say probably 11. Only because when I feel like when you reach the age of 12, people like to call you a preteen, and when you're 13, you're considered a teenager up until about the age of 17, and then at 18, at least in the US, you're then considered an adult. So do I agree that these shows probably may not appeal to children between the ages of 4 and 11? Possibly. But I feel like it's more than just the fact that there's things like lack of romance in it or lack of action or the complex themes even. I feel like it's just based off of whether or not these shows are the genre that these kids are interested in. Now, do I think also that some of the shows that I have seen are appropriate for children? No. I don't believe a 4-year-old should be watching Death Note, nor do I think someone at the age of 6 or 7 should be watching a show like Psycho Pass. But I can but that's mostly just due to some of the material that is involved in those shows, not so much the complex themes of me thinking that the kids just aren't going to understand. And that is because a lot of kids nowadays are extremely smart, and we honestly don't know if the kid's going to understand some of the complex themes involved. Because I can honestly say that for some of these shows that I even saw as an adult, I myself didn't even touch on some of the themes that were in these shows that this article went on to touch on or to mention. For example, the article mentioned that for Cowboy Bebop, it dealt with issues like regret. But for me, honestly, when I watched the show, I didn't think of this theme. And also because of the fact that for me myself, I was not very interested in the show Cowboy Bebop as a whole. It just didn't appeal to me. And I was an adult when I watched this. I was like 28 or 29 when I finally watched Cowboy Bebop. And I didn't pick up on that theme at all, nor was I interested in the show like I mentioned. So I honestly don't think that age really has a lot to do with the theming involved. To me, there's a lot more to it than that. To further give an example, they also mentioned the anime Spice and Wolf, which I watched probably at the age of like 21 to 22, I believe. And in Spice and Wolf, they talked about that because it had some economics involved in it, that was a complex theme that kids will not understand. Well, I can understand that just because of the fact that economics myself, I didn't learn until I was later on in high school, like maybe my senior year. But even as an adult, I didn't pick on the economic things that were involved in Spice and Wolf. I mostly looked at the two characters of Lawrence and, of course, Lawrence and the Wolf character, whose name escapes me at this moment in time, and their romance and how they were kind of intricately involved with each other. I didn't pick up on the economic issues that were going on in the show. Not to say they weren't important, but I was focused on other aspects within that show, not just that. And with Death Parade, the show really talks about death. And I feel like that was a concept that I myself as an adult was able to pick up on. Now, I will say, though, that I feel like that, yes, these shows may not be appropriate for children due to particular aspects and material involved. But to me, to say that they have such complex themes that these kids will not understand, that doesn't mean there aren't certain aspects in the show that these children will not ultimately end up enjoying. Because I mean, how many of us have watched a movie? So, for example, Studio Ghibli movie, and a lot of people have talked about the movie Spirited Away and how it had something in there kind of for everybody. Spirited Away had an overall complex theme of dealing with the afterlife and dealing with growing up when it comes to the main character. But of course, that was something that a lot of adults were very much able to touch on and very much able to understand. But overall in Studio Ghibli, it did have lots of colors and really fun characters and comedic lines that really drew a lot of kids in. So once again, I can't speak on whether or not these shows are appropriate for children because of the themes that are involved or lack of action or lack of romance, but I can say it may not be appropriate due to some of the material that is involved, like with Death Note, for example, and how it deals with a lot of thriller and stuff involved that kids may find scary or frightening and things like that. So ultimately, it's honestly up to the parents whether or not they feel like these shows are appropriate for their kids to watch. So I can't dictate that. So like I said, overall, do I agree with what this article says? Yes and no, but for very different reasons. And honestly, it just overall depends on the show. But I'm not going to knock kids and feel like you're too young, you're not going to understand this, because who are we to say what a kid can and cannot understand? Because some kids understand concepts that even us adults are not able to comprehend or even to understand. I also think it mostly just comes down to a genre and what someone in particular is interested in when it comes to genre. For example, for me, I'm very much interested in more so comedic and rom-coms and maybe some action shows, but shows that are really related to more so sci-fi or mech just don't appeal to me. And so while those might have some complex themes involved, I may not readily go out and try and watch them because of the genre that it's in. And I feel like that's the same thing with kids. And I honestly can't sit there and say that, like I said, because of complex themes, I can't sit there and say that just because you're a child, you won't understand. Because like I mentioned and gave example for shows like Cowboy Bebop, as well as like with Spice and Wolf, I was an adult when I watched those shows and I still didn't see those complex themes when I watched it. So I can't say the same thing for kids. Overall, I think there are anime that are specifically for children and are marketed for children, and that's just basically due to the material that they put inside of the show, but there also still might be those complex themes that adults themselves can pick up on. And I feel like that's just how anime is overall, and I feel like that's how a lot of even American shows are overall, that sometimes have a little bit of tougher subjects that adults more so understand, but kids are mostly just looking at, I like the show, I like the characters, is it funny? And this is basically why I'm going to enjoy it. And I feel like that's the same thing for some of these shows within anime. But once again, I feel like watching these shows are definitely up to the adults involved and whether or not their kids can handle watching these shows, or if their kids, or if they're able to handle their kids like asking certain questions regarding these shows, if it does have a complex theme or has issues involved that the kids just do not understand. Now, when it comes to romance, though, within some of these shows, I do feel like that is something that might be a show that you watch when you're younger, and then when you go back and watch it when you're older, you understand it a little bit more. So, like, for example, with Love is Hard for Otaku, I feel like if I would have watched that show when I was in high school, I probably wouldn't have understood the whole mature romance aspect, and I probably would have been turned off that it didn't have, like, some, like, steamier scenes involved. But as watching it as an adult, I really loved it and enjoyed it because it showed a romance that was very realistic to what many of us have gone through in our late 20s when it comes to getting a relationship where you're much more communicative with what you want and what you need. Whereas when you're a teenager, you don't really communicate that very well. You're going very much based off of your own thinking and what you think your partner wants, what you think your partner needs. So there's just certain aspects like that. But overall, that's kind of my thoughts. So I'm kind of like in the middle, I guess, with this. Like, I understand what the article overall was trying to say and what the article overall was trying to get at. But I figure, or at least to me, I feel like kids enjoying certain shows are much more complex thinking than just lack of romance, lack of action, and complex themes. I feel like it's more so the material that is involved in there, and I feel like it's more so kind of left up to the adult of that child to determine whether or not these shows are appropriate for them to watch. Just because there's shows that even that they may feel like are marketed to adults that have these complex themes that even us as adults won't pick up on. And I don't know if that's the fault of the adult or a fault of the show. So don't know what that is about, but that's a whole different issue. But overall, that's what I have for you guys. Let me know what you guys think. Like I said, I will of course link the article down below, and let me know your thoughts about this article. Let me know if you agree with me, if you disagree with me, if you feel like the article, like if you feel like you understood what the article was kind of trying to say, or if you feel like they should have just, phrased it differently, I guess is what I want to say. But yeah, that's what I have for you guys. I have links below to all my social media accounts. I have an Instagram, a Twitter, and I also have a TikTok, which I just posted a new video up on there. It was a little mini review of the manga Peach Girl Next, which I of course also did upload onto here, or it is recorded on here as well. So please check that out if you haven't already. Like this video, and of course subscribe if you haven't already, especially if you are enjoying my content. And I'll see you guys soon with a brand new video. Like I always tell you guys, stay positive, stay nerdy, and in today's day and age, stay healthy, and of course, please stay safe. All right, you guys, bye.